All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today on this video, we're wearing some flannel because it is fall and we're just about to get into November, which is a great month for bass fishing. Generally, November really marks a switch in the aggression level of bass from, kind of off and on to generally on. You know, the month of November can be really, really good for bass fishing because a lot of the fish are starting to feed up for the winter time. And so you got a lot of active fish out there. So what I want to do today is walk through, how many do we have here? 5 of my favorite category of baits for fishing during the fall. Just like any of these, top baits of the month video that I do, I do them every single year for every single month pretty much. And I'm always adding in or subtracting a bait or two. It doesn't mean that those baits that you may have seen on last year's November top baits doesn't work anymore. It just means that, I have a wide variety of baits that work during this time of month, and it really just depends on what the bite is like on my lake and my personal favorite baits at that time. So if you've seen a 2024 November baits video and it's a little bit different than this, all those baits are still working. It just depends on your fishery. And on that note, not all of these 5 baits that I'm going to show you are going to be the deal on your fishery. So you really have to go out there, test these baits, and depending on the type of fishery that you're on, 1 or 2 of them might play, or maybe all 5 will play. I don't know. That's up to you. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. The first bait I want to show you is really one that I've done a ton of content on this time of year, and I continue to do so because I've already let the cat out of the bag, number 1. And number 2, I like to see you guys catch a lot of fish. And this one right here is definitely going to catch you a lot of fish. This is just a small little 3-inch swim bait. As with all my videos, I'm not telling you have to get this bait. I'm going to tell you why I like this bait. But a small swim bait like this is really good during the fall, and everybody makes a small swim bait. This one right here is a Z-Man minnows. This one's pretty special, especially if I'm fishing up shallow and it's a little bit more stained water. So pretty much all of Lake Chickamauga and the Tennessee River, this is a really, really good bait. Has a ton of action, not only in the tail, but also has kind of this slight hunting action when you put it on a jig head. It really doesn't just track straight like some other swim baits do. It actually has a lot of, movement, hunting action to it. And I like to fish it on generally a jig head. I also fish it on little chatterbaits and little head spins and stuff like that, or underspins rather. But overall, a small swim bait like the minnows is great during November because, again, you have a lot of fish in the backs of those creeks, crashing on bait fish, really feeding up pretty hard. And most of the bait fish that you're going to see in the backs of creeks are generally pretty small. So you want to match the hatch, and that's why a 3-inch swim bait or something around that size is going to work really, really well. And you can also fish it on Main Lake and do all that stuff. I like to fish on Chickamauga around the last remaining grass, wherever I see bait fish and I know that there's bass around, that's where I'm going to be throwing the swim bait. And yeah, it's just a really easy technique. You just go out there, and if it's a flat, you just fan cast. If it's a weed edge, you just parallel the weed edge and just reel it back in, and you're going to be able to catch a lot of fish with this bait. And I think if you see this before we get into November, they're having a big sale at zmanfishing.com on the minnows. So you might be able to catch the last of that promotion if you watch it the first day it posts. So anyways, that one's a really good one. That's kind of like my good go-to finesse swim bait if I'm seeing smaller bait fish. All right, so the next technique that I really like to throw this time of year, again, I've talked about it in recent videos quite a bit because it is relevant for this time of year. And it's a bait that has been around a long time and is really, really good if your fishery has a lot of stained or even muddy water and really, really shallow areas. that's going to be a buzzbait. A buzzbait is just one of the best shallow water presentations. This bite starts tapering off around the middle of November in a lot of places, but the early part of November can be absolute dynamite on a buzzbait. So once the temperatures, I'm going to make a real general statement here, but once the temperatures get below 60, that's when you might want it to start focusing more subsurface than on something like a buzzbait. But there's no set number that you need to start fishing subsurface. I've caught fish on a buzzbait, and this is actually one of the best cold water, topwater baits out there, in my opinion. I've caught them in 55-degree water before, no problem. So buzzbait's really good. This one right here is the Booger Man. I like the 1/4 ounce. It's a buzzbait I've been talking a lot about recently because I'm talking about buzzbaits. I usually change out the skirt for a Z-Man Goat as a trailer. Some type of toad trailer will work great. And I usually like shad patterns. I like white and a gold blade. That's pretty typical. There's other times of the year that I really like black, black with a black blade or black with a silver blade. But to keep it simple during the fall when the fish are really focusing on shad, I really lean hard on that white and gold combo. So that is for the buzzbait bite. The next bait is also a topwater bait because I really think that November is a very underrated topwater month. I think a lot of people, because the nights are starting to get cold, even the days are starting to get cool, they think that bass aren't going to hit topwater anymore. That's just not the case. November is a great, great topwater month. And my second favorite, or I wouldn't even put them in terms of like first and second. The buzzbait's a completely different scenario. It's for that shallow, dirty water type scenario where you're beating the bank. But this right here, a walking bait, this is the Duo Realis Pencil 110. This is a really good topwater bait. The only gripe I have with this one, you can see I haven't fished it hardly at all. It's not worn at all. The only gripe I have with this particular bait, and all these are going to be in the description below, by the way, is the fact that it only has 2 hooks to hook those fish. So I tend to miss more fish on the Pencil 110, but it gets a lot of strikes. I love this topwater bait. But a walking bait this time of year is one of the best windows of opportunity for a walking bait. And that includes like a Zara spook, even the concave mouth type of like pencil poppers and things like that, shower blows. This is a great time of year to throw a walking style bait, whatever it is. And I use it anywhere from the main lake structure that's pretty shallow all the way into the backs of creeks. It's a very, very versatile tool for fishing this time of year, and it really imitates not only threadfin shad, so smaller shad, but it imitates those big gizzard shad that get really active this time of year. And I find that some of the biggest bites that I'm going to get during the month of November come on this bait right here, or this category of bait. So really, really great bait to throw this time of year if they're still eating on top, and you want something that really imitates many different size classes of shad. Man, the walking bait's hard to beat. All right, the next one is a subsurface bait. I can remember when I first moved to Tennessee and started to learn some of the things that really worked around here. And I remember I got here in November and started fishing and really started loving to throw crankbaits. This right here is the DT6. This is 1 or 2 on my top 2 favorite list overall. A DT6 is just a phenomenal tool once those fish start, once the water starts dropping temperature in November all the way into March. This is a really, really killer tool. I like shad patterns for fishing my smaller crankbaits. Another good crankbait would be like the Bandit 200 series. That's another favorite. But these smaller, more finesse crankbaits like the DT6 and the 200 really are great for fishing, rocky type banks, rocky type lakes. that, you know, where you're trying to just cover water and catch fish in the backs of creeks, or all the way from the mouth of the creek all the way to the back. So if you don't know exactly where those fish are in a creek arm, you know, as far as, you know, where they've made it to or where they're making it back from, throw something like a DT6 around and just cover water, beating the bank, making contact with that bottom. And that is a great way to catch fish this time of year, and also locate what region of a creek arm the fish are located on. And a lot of times what I'm looking for is usually creek channel bends. So like where the creek channel moves in towards the shoreline, you know, really just goes right next to a shoreline. And usually you can tell, even without a map, what shorelines I'm talking about, where that creek channel bends, because one side of the bank will be pretty gradual sloping. You know, it takes a long time for it to get pretty deep. And then one side of a creek will have a much steeper bank. That's where the creek channel is bending in towards the shoreline, creating that steeper contour. And that's generally, you know, creek channel bends in the backs of creeks or halfway into the backs of creeks. That is a perfect scenario for throwing a small finesse crankbait like the DT6. Really great bait this time of year. All right, finally, I don't have these tied on yet, but I'm about to tie them on. The next category of bait that I really like to have tied on in November is really my kind of, you know, my fail-safe. If the bite is not on top and they're not eating reaction baits down below, even that little swim bait, and I need to slow down, be a little bit more deliberate, I'll generally tie on a finesse jig. This right here is the Z-Man cross-size finesse jig. And then we've got the Kitech jig, which is a really good jig. This is a tungsten head. I love this thing. You can get it in like a 1/2 ounce, so like I can get it deeper. And generally I'm using just, you know, whatever small chunk trailer or creature bait trailer that you know, fits it. But finesse jigs overall are really great this time of year. I remember a trip to Tim's Ford with my buddy Casey years ago. It was the first time and only time I've been to Tim Ford Lake. And we went there and we fished all these techniques that I just showed you and really struggled. Even though I was catching them on like Chickamauga and Watts Bar and places like that, I went to Tim's Ford. We just could not get it going in any, you know, meaningful way on any of these reaction baits. But as soon as we pulled out to a creek channel bend in the back of this creek, we started fishing finesse jigs like these and absolutely started crushing the smallmouth. It was a blast. We started catching some really nice quality smallmouth. And that really, you know, and I had already kind of learned that lesson in the past, that these little jigs can do a lot of damage during the fall, but you get so caught up in like the reaction baits and things like that, at least I do, that you forget to slow down, and sometimes you have to. So if you're finding that the bite is pretty tough, pick up a finesse jig or just a jig in general. Pick apart cover in likely areas that the fish are. You know, maybe it's a creek channel bend again. You know, creek channel bends are great because a lot of these lakes are falling down as far as the water level. And as fish pull out of the backs of those creeks, they pull to the nearest deep water. And those steep creek channel bend areas are some of the steepest and deepest water that they can find, where, you know, they don't have to move a long distance to change depth level. You know, if they're out on a flat, if you drop that water 2 foot, they have to go a long distance to get to deeper water sometimes. But on a creek channel bend, generally, they don't have to go anywhere. That's where they can intercept the bait fish that are moving out. That's where they can live before they really have to start moving locations because the water drops way low. They're, you know, creek channel bends are just perfect. They're a great high percentage spot, and you can just slow down with a finesse jig like these and do really well. But anyways, that's all I have to say about these 5 baits that are really good in November. Obviously, again, go experiment, try other baits, you know, try different techniques, but these are 5 really, really good ones to lean on during the month of November. So let me know what you think about these lure selections in the description below. I want to hear your opinion, and if you have any questions, drop a comment below. I've got all the links to these products that I talked about, my favorite baits in each of these categories, in the description below. And other than that, I'm going to see you out in the water. Trust the process.